opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
Can't shake this terror from my head tonight. Alone and forsaken, I bleed. A twisted vision, a tired mind betrays a victim of shame.
And good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night, and around these parts, that means After Hours AM. And I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and along with me each and every week,
Eric Olson.
Eric, how you been, man?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. Guess what I did last night in my bathroom at about
It wasn't after chilly night, was it?
10 p.m.
What did you do in your bathroom at 10 p.m.?
I was using my bathroom for its acoustic properties.
Oh, you were recording.
I was recording. I recorded what will be a Halloween podcast of my amazing experience, my senior year of high school, at the Halloween party where the band was playing, where I almost died
And you almost died.
and was saved by
This is the story that you told while I was interviewing you on After
Exactly.
Hours AM. Wow, interesting story. I love the story. I won't give it away. I don't want to do any spoilers. But it's one of those ones that makes you stop and go, whoa, dude. That's crazy.
it is a fundamental experience in my life, certainly in my paranormal life, and it will be on the Lineup podcast. Are you familiar with the Lineup site?
I have never heard of them, but I would like to get acquainted with them.
They're relatively new. I think they've only been about around maybe a year or so, and they started as pretty much strictly true crime, but I
Gotcha.
think pretty early on they realized that true crime bleeds, no pun intended, very easily into the paranormal. So now they cover paranormal, true crime.
Now, is it a radio show with a couple hosts, or is it a podcast? So
It's a site, and they just do one podcast per month, just one episode a month.
Interesting. That's a tough format in radio.
Yeah,
know,
but
I
it's
mean-
just a podcast.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they're not trying to sell it as something groovy like us.
This is
once
true.
a month. You get it off of their site. It's just a supplemental thing to the site. It's a multimedia aspect of their site. But they've been doing really well, and in fact, they would like very much to start sharing content with us.
With us? Well, jeez.
Yes.
We might be able to help them.
/ After Hours AM. Brand new site. Finally!
I know, the gods are smiling upon us, my
Or
friend.
two.
Exactly. The gods are smiling upon us as we speak.
I have
The
seen
radio
it.
gods.
It exists. It's real. There's only a few more little odds and ends to add in there. I had to go dig up some passwords and whatnot that I haven't used in like 5 years.
Now, how do you keep your passwords? Do you keep in a Rolodex? Or
I used to, and I do still, but it finally dawned on me that I can get every single password out of my browser. It's stored in your browser.
See, it's funny because when my dad was alive, he kept everything in a Rolodex. I mean, I'm talking account numbers and passwords. Finally, I told him, hey, that's not exactly the safest thing in the world. You know, you don't want to just leave your Rolodex laying
And
around
it's
with
so
your banking.
not digital.
Yeah, well, that's where it was, a wonderful thing for him. Whoa, who's going to see my Rolodex? Well, what if a thief comes in and he steals your Rolodex, and there he has all of your bank account numbers and your passwords and your PINs and everything to get your money?
That was a reasonable point you made.
Yeah, he says...
See, I leave all of the financial interactions, anything electronic that is financial, I leave up to Dawn. So, I wash my hands and feet of it.
See, I wish I could do that, but I can't. I am smack dab in the middle of this online banking craze. And
Boy, not me.
I'm not really comfortable with it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just too easy, A, to get in, and B, it's entirely too easy to spend money with a debit card. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
You just swipe the card.
I'm exaggerating a bit. I'm responsible for paying, I don't know, half-ish of the bills, and basically almost all or all of those I do online. It's just, I don't handle the actual banking. That Dawn takes care of. And, I still get all the bills in the mail. I mean, I still get everything a hard copy. They keep every single account. They bug you every time you log on. Go to no paper. You will save the
paperless.
earth. Well,
You'll save the earth.
I want that piece of paper.
But if you read the fine print, there is a service charge for paying online. A lot of these places are charging a $3 service charge, what they call a convenience fee.
Wow. Well, I don't think that is occurring. I'm unaware of it. I will have to look closely to make sure it's not happening. But I'll tell you, my wife, Dawn, monitors the bank accounts so fanatically, there wouldn't be a 3-cent fee that would slip by, let alone a $3.
Well, and some of us go to Walmart and go in for one thing and come out with, $300 worth of crap.
It is a very distinct possibility. That's why I didn't, in my earlier adult years, I didn't really bother with a list. I'd kind of memorize, or I'd visualize, what do we need? I'd leave it kind of open-ended. Well, I'll see when I get there. What do I feel like? What food do I feel like? And, of course, my first wife in my early adult years, she honestly did most of the shopping. But when I would go, I didn't always use a list. And so gradually I came to realize that was very dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Over purchasing, besides simply forgetting things. So for the last, 20 years, I have maniacally made a list, followed the list, and bought nothing but
Are you kind of like Mr. Burns? You go, excellent.
With my fingers.
When you follow your list. Excellent.
Can you see me
I
rolling
can.
my fingertips?
I can. Excellent.
I'm doing it right.
Speaking of money, and we are on the track of money here, would you let, Eric, a $1 million lottery ticket slip through your fingers?
Well, I would hope not. I'm not sure how that would be possible.
Well,
see, now, I don't participate in the lottery because I have very few really hard, fast moral rules. But one of my hard, fast moral rules is I will not participate in state-sponsored gambling.
How can you win if you don't play?
You can't. But you don't spend the money.
Well, anyhow, I digress. Kentwood, Michigan, September 23rd. A Michigan woman found a $1 million winning lottery ticket in her mail that she let lay there for 4 months. Linda Turtle.
Did she know all that?
No, she did not know it was a winning lottery ticket until she went to the location where she had bought the Mega Millions lottery ticket at a T&J party store. and they had told her, hey, there was a lottery ticket that was $1 million winner that was drawn from here. You might want to check your ticket. She went home, feverishly went through all of her mail. It seemed like for weeks until she came across the winning lottery ticket. The woman said she just couldn't believe her eyes when she looked at the 5 numbers, 1, 39, 52, 69, and 72. She said, it was a highlight of my life. I can't believe I won so much money. I'm trying to add some, because I imagine that's how she sounds. Because I show her here, and she is indeed in curlers. But she did claim her prize on Tuesday. And now she'll be able to buy pork rinds, Schlitz beer, and have 4 more children.
Oh, my. Oh, my. How old is the woman?
It does not say the age, but she looks to be about, I'd say between the ages of 35 and 45, somewhere in that neighborhood, 10-year span there.
A woman between 35 and 45 should not be out in public in curlers.
No, but this particular gal was out there. This lady was out there claiming her prize, proudly in her pink curlers from the 1976 thrill. Yeah, remember the 1976 curlers?
Yes.
The old pink ones that look like they got pins running through. There she is. Anyhow,
my mother wore them, but not in public.
Well, this lady didn't care, evidently. She's going to walk up there with her Schlitz beer, get her ticket, and walk away. Get her money.
They still make Schlitz beer?
I'm assuming. I don't know. My dad used to drink the Blue Bull. Remember that?
I remember Schlitz beer.
Schlitz beer, man.
Well.
Schlitz beer. And then you also drink Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Well, that's still around. We know that.
Yeah. Well, it's not. You know what? Now it's all these Chinese companies that own all of these beer companies anyway.
It's not the same.
No.
And the hipsters have adopted PBR.
Yes.
So, who wants to do that?
No, who wants to do that these days? But anyhow, that is the weird story as far as finances go. This lady wins big. She ends up losing in her mail for the longest time. Runs down there in her curlers, and going, I want me my money. And she gets her money, and then that's really about what happens.
Well, I guess I'm glad that she eventually got it, because that really would have been a tragedy.
I don't see her. She doesn't look like the kind of person to be feeding the homeless or, donating to charity. I'm just saying I shouldn't really judge. I'm just saying she just doesn't look that way.
No, we don't know. Don't judge a
curler
by its curlers.
Exactly. Man, it has been one of those odd news weeks where the Pope is now, making his rounds.
Yes.
And everybody is this.
Go ahead.
Everything is Pope related these days. Pope Francis even blessed DC Metro and its fare cards. Come on, the guy's blessing everything. What's up with that?
Check this out. I don't know if we've mentioned this on the air, may in passing, but my mother had a stroke almost 3 weeks ago now, and it was pretty severe. And she was in the hospital for, I guess, about a week and a half. Then they moved her to a rehab facility where she's been for approximately a week or so. And, it's been very hard, and we're going and visiting. My poor dad sits there by her side 8 hours a day, and she's definitely partially paralyzed on one side. Her speech is very slowly returning, but it is. So, it's hard on the one hand, but on the other hand, there are definitely encouraging signs, and we are hopeful, and she's getting her sense of humor back. It's very nice to see her smile. It's a crooked smile because she can only really move one half, but it's a smile.
But thank God she's making the progress in the right direction. I want to thank everyone that prayed for your mom, all the listeners, and everyone that sent their support your way. I know it's much, much appreciated.
It is, and thank you very much. My point was, yesterday when we were visiting, it is her habit in real life, in her normal life, that she basically has her television on most of the time, and she definitely has specific shows she watches, but when those aren't on, she has it on one of the news channels, and she flips between them, but she seems to favor Fox News, but she understands its limitations, and she goes over to some of the other ones. So anyway, it was a really positive sign when I don't know. It hasn't been a week yet. Maybe over the weekend, last weekend, she said, indicated that she did want the TV on. She had no interest whatsoever in having the TV on. We don't think maybe she could even really see it.
Mm-hmm.
Or very well, maybe prior to that. So the TV went on last weekend. She has it on and off. Yesterday, obviously, the big Pope arrival day.
Yes.
We're talking. I go in. Hi, Mom. How you doing? So great to see you. And always miss you when I'm not seeing you. And oh, look, you're watching TV. What's going on? This is what she said. Pope, 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 all day long. Nothing but Pope.
Well, the Pope is a bit of a big
So
deal.
there you
evidently.
go.
I want
my mother.
I want the Pope mobile. That's what I want.
Cool mobile, isn't it?
I want the Pope mobile. I want to be able to travel around the countryside in the Pope. It's standing around in the Pope mobile, and
My
almost a
bulletproof shield in the front.
Exactly. Well, how about in the rear? Is a bulletproof there too? I don't know. Just saying.
I hope so, but you see the big shield in the front.
I do. I'm looking at a picture of it right now. There's the Pope, big grin, going, "Hey, look at you! I suckered everyone out of millions of dollars." No, I'm kidding. Sorry, I won't go there. Don't want to offend anybody, but why does he need a Pope mobile? I mean,
Well, so he can appear in public because it's very important to him to be.
But the president doesn't even show up in a mobile.
Yeah, but the president doesn't drive down the street waving and interacting with people on a regular basis.
Well, he really should.
He should, but the Pope does, you see.
Yeah.
And if you'll recall, there was a little thing, it happened in Dallas in the early 60s.
Well, I do remember something that went down there at a book repository, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dallas.
Yeah, 63, November.
That kind of has... That has put a damper on public appearances that are truly open and available, to the public. And the president really, all officials, everyone, public figures, period. I mean, you really have to pick and choose your battles, and you got to be extremely careful. It's not even your decision. It's the Secret Service. It's the various police organizations, and on and on and on. It's not like you even have a choice.
I know, but isn't there a certain point where we all got sick of the Pope?
Well, you mean this Pope or popes in general?
No, I mean when they visit, because I'm not Catholic, to be completely honest.
I'm not either.
And I'm not begrudging the Catholic faith at all. I think it's a wonderful faith. But, it just gets to be nauseating.
Well, the part that bothers people, obviously, especially people who are not Catholic, and while Catholicism is the largest plurality Christian denomination, there's still way more people in the U.S. who aren't Catholic than who are. And so, it's the worship. It's the hero worship, or not even hero worship, but literal worship of a human that bothers people. Now, what I like very much about this Pope, and I must say I do admire this Pope, as far as I'm going to admire any Pope.
Sure.
This one Pope Francis seems to be genuinely a humble human being. Now, his office, obviously, is not one of humility. It's one of, almost bizarre, medieval level pomp and circumstance. But he himself is, by every account I have ever heard or read, a humble human being. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference. And I think he's in it for the right reasons. I think this guy genuinely cares. I think he is genuinely a man of God. I do believe that. So
I would agree with you. I would agree. I could never do the job. I would never want to be Pope, even if I was Catholic, to be honest with you, because quite honestly, it's just not my gig. But I don't understand. I guess like most of us out there, we hear a little bit about the Pope. Okay, he's here in the United States. But why do we need to dedicate so much coverage to, like you said, clearly a minority religion in the United States?
It's a variety of things. First of all, this is the first time this particular Pope in his entire life has ever been to the U.S., number one. Number two, this Pope is super, super popular, and he is viewed as more liberal than most, perhaps all,
Mhm.
certainly recent popes anyway, in terms of his, broadly speaking, political viewpoint. He's not really all that different as far as his particular views from the Catholic mainstream, certainly, or I should say perhaps the Catholic hierarchy, but he has chosen to emphasize different things. And he seems to be, his emphasis is much more on the positive. He keeps talking about the one key word for him is mercy. Whereas in the past, it was more focusing on what you shouldn't be doing, what is wrong, what is prohibited behavior. And this guy seems to be focused more on inclusiveness, mercy, forgiveness. And I think people are really, really responding to that. And not and finally, you asked why all this pomp and circumstance, why all this attention. It absolutely does not hurt at all that our standing president and he have some very, very strong commonalities in their points of view, particularly on climate change and on immigration.
Mm-hmm. 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 Very.
So it
Yep.
is to this president's advantage to, in essence, be seen as being supported by the views, at least on some things.
But is it a vote grab? Is it a vote grab for the
I don't know if it's a
Democratic
vote
Party
grab. It may
at
be
the
a
end?
popularity grab, but I don't think Obama's running for anything.
No,
from here
no.
on.
I'm just saying, as in general, for the party, Democratic Party.
Perhaps.
'Cause,
A little, sure.
But anyhow, moving away from that, I got a
It's
question
all
for you.
politics.
I got a question for you. I'm on the old Twitter the other day, and I'm not a Twitter guy. I'm the first to admit it. I try, but what the heck is this hashtag? I realize it's old news, but what does it really mean, Eric? The hashtag?
All a hashtag really is like a tag on a blog or on a website. It's just a way of identifying a person, place, thing, phrase that you, the writer of that, wants to be found when someone is looking for that. So any name that I tweet about, I will always use a hashtag. Any kind of key word relating, what is the essence, what is the subject of that tweet, I will almost always hashtag that. Because when people search for that term, I want them to find.
Interesting. Okay, because I had a young person that came up to me and said hashtag whatever. And I'm like, why are you telling me hashtag? They actually verbalized it.
Because it has become a cliche.
It just
in commercials and everywhere else.
It went way over my head. I thought I'd ask, and I'm like, well, you hear me. I sound like one of the kids. I'm like, totally. No, but I asked, what the heck's a hashtag? And they looked at me like a deer in the headlights. They had no idea. And I said,
They didn't even know what a hashtag was.
They didn't even know what it meant. And I'm like, if you're going to use it, at least be able to explain it, please. Thank you very, very much. This coming from the grumbly old man in the corner, that is me, going, you damn kids.
Yeah, the history of the hashtag, it originated with Twitter.
Ancient Greece. No.
Yeah, ancient Greece. Twitter in ancient Greece. No, but it became recognized as being so useful and helpful that all of the other social media adopted it as well. You can use hashtag on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, whatever you're on, use your hashtag. And again, it's just a way when people are searching for that term, they will find you if you use the hashtag.
Interesting, very interesting stuff. I got to ask, Eric, what do you think about crystal skulls? Because we got a great guest tonight, Joshua Shapiro, on the show, and look for him at the top of next hour. We're going to be talking about crystal skulls, what it all means. What do you think?
I think they're a really interesting concept. I think they're fascinating artistically. Very, I would think, extraordinarily difficult to make, and to make them that smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as their paranormal and or extraterrestrial, that I'm less knowledgeable about and or convinced of, but man, oh man, I am ready, willing, and able to hear all about it. I
Now-
know they found them. They find them in South America, I think, in
Everywhere.
particular, but not only. They've been found various places throughout the world.
I got a question for you, though. Do you believe that maybe the crystal skulls are just really, really old ways of keeping data?
What kind of data?
I have heard that the
Perchance.
quartz is actually one of the key ingredients in making microchips, and that there very well could be data inside those skulls.
Well, that's interesting. Yes, quartz is from silica, and of course, silicon is what chips are made out of. At least these days.
I've heard that theory that if we're to somehow be able to tap into it, it might have the secrets of the universe right in these skulls.
That would be something.
And we don't even know it yet. There's no way we don't have that kind of computing power. Evidently,
I want to hear all about it because I freely admit crystal skulls, as far as the broadly speaking paranormal world, they would be a phenomena that I am less familiar with than most, or I'm less knowledgeable about than most.
Well, I have
Not
lots of
something
questions. I have lots of questions for Joshua Shapiro, again, at the top of next
Yeah.
hour. And we will get to the bottom of these crystal skulls and what's going on, along with of course, your headline news for America's Most Haunted. And we also have an update on a tragedy that befell the paranormal this last week. But before we go, we got 4 minutes left. Did you watch Fear the Walking Dead? Did you catch the newest episode? What do you think
I did
of that
and
show?
It was another really good episode. It was fascinating that they chose. I think it's a function of the fact that they only have 6 episodes this first season, and we've already done 4. So in other words, there's only 2 more. So they did a time jump. They jumped ahead about 9 days, right?
Yes, they did.
And so now we find the families, we find our friends, the people we're following are within this containment area. And in theory, they're told anyway, there are 12 of them within in the greater LA area. And basically everything else is a no man's land. And I thought it was very interesting to see that now we have evolved from being terrified, horrified, confused, flummoxed by what is this disease?
Mm-hmm.
What is it doing to people? Are we in fact actually dealing with revivified dead bodies? And we pivoted from that through the first 3 episodes to now the 4th one. The greatest concern, the greatest danger is from your fellow human being.
Well, yeah, look at that drug addict stealing that dude's morphine that needed it. Come on. I mean, come on. That guy needs to get killed.
Oh man, that was low. But hey, that's just an addict being an addict.
Addict being an addict. My rear end. The guy needs to pay. He needs to get his comeuppance in the show.
Well, he may have, as he was hauled away.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, the show actually is pretty good. I'm liking it. Of course, it doesn't have the normal, character squad that we're used to, of course. So I'm still getting used to the characters. No one's really shown me any real substance yet as far as depth of acting. There's been no tough scenes really to speak of. It's all been pretty much fluffy up until this point. I mean, straightforward. This is the story. They've done a pretty good job in the short period of time of doing character development. I do give them kudos for that, but it doesn't have the meat or the teeth that The Walking Dead has.
Well, not yet, but again, as we've discussed, I think it has done a good job of differentiating itself. I mean, it is a different show, and it's a different feel, and there's definitely a different emphasis. I think it makes sense. I think it's logical that it would feel different. The world would be different at the very beginning of this than it would a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 into it. It's an evolving world, and what we're seeing now going into season, we're going into 5 or 6.
Walking Dead. I want to believe this is 6.
6, I think you're right. Yep. So we're heading into season 6 here, and that's pretty far down the road.
Well,
And,
it is. It is. I don't know. You get to know these characters, and just it's hard with the limited time frame to really go into depth. But I tell you what, we gotta do. Speaking of gotta do, we have to go to break. So no one go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. And we're going to be talking your headline news, America's Most Haunted, as well as the latest on the Constantino tragedy. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Wait a minute!
Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Time, chunk. Hey, my friend's mouth! Whoa, do you guys realize what we could do? I don't want to go on any more of your crazy Goonie adventures.
Meet Mikey.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Brand. Andy.
Shame! Come on, Brad. Slip with the tongue. That's disgusting. No, I can't even look.
Mouse.
I gotcha! Now get out from behind there. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my joke.
Stephanie. Data.
Booty banger! Ow! Guys, isn't that neat?
And Chunk.
It's locked. Big drinks, Chunk.
They call themselves The Goonies.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online. For like a year, she couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And man, I gotta tell you, it has been one of those crazy days. We had a really big tragedy hit the paranormal community, depending upon your point of view of tragedy, I guess, because I've heard a lot of different stories and a lot of different renderings of what people thought, but really at the end of it all, it's murder-suicide, a paranormal research team, Mark and Debbie Constantino, which any way you cut it is tragic.
It is horrifying. It's unbelievably awful, and it just shows you how far people can go when they lose sight of what's important and what counts. And these are people who obviously must have loved each other. They've been married since the late 80s. They have 2 daughters, and they've been together all this time. You've interviewed them. I've interviewed them. There's a link if you're interested in hearing a full hour-long interview with me and Teresa and the Constantinos from 2013. Just go to the America's Most Haunted Twitter account. It's at AM Haunted, and just go to yesterday's tweets, because this is when the news broke. It happened Tuesday, but the news broke pretty much everywhere yesterday, or at least early yesterday.
Yeah.
So there is a link to the interview, and what was so interesting going back, I didn't have a chance to listen to that whole interview from 2013, but what I heard, and it kind of coincided with what I remembered, they did kind of bicker. They were a bickering couple, but you had the impression that this was just the way they interacted. They were from New Jersey. They're kind of edgy types. I've known lots of people from New Jersey, and they tend to be contentious.
Yeah, I got the same feel when I interviewed them, I'd say 7 years ago. I was doing a radio show called Airstrike Radio for all you folks that are fans of Airstrike out there. I know it's still being downloaded heavily out there. It was a great show at the time. I interviewed them, and to be honest with you, I got the same feel. They were kind of bickery, but I thought it was more of a playful bicker.
Exactly.
Although there were some deep jabs every now and again, and you kind of tell them keep the gloves up. But I thought that was just the way that they rolled in their relationship, because Evelyn has a different kind of relationship.
A topic that came up, I noticed, and it was in some of the lengthier articles about the incident. And by the way, we haven't even exactly said what happened. So let's quickly do that first. There was history to this back in the spring. In fact, Debbie was arrested for assault for attacking Mark with a knife, cut his arm. Then in July, or August, Mark was arrested for kidnapping Debbie. None of this is funny. Literally dragging her out of her car by her neck, and charged with attempted strangulation. These are not minor activities. Kidnapping and what's odder still is that incident involved their daughter, who apparently and who was also charged. So she was apparently supporting in some way her father in this assault upon her mother, which just strikes me as super weird. And then what happened on Tuesday is just horrifying. They still haven't, as far as I know, identified the first dead man.
No, they never released that, at least in these articles. I did try to contact the Reno Police Department to get an official police report, which they have not gotten back to me as of airing of this show. So if I do actually get my hands on an official police report, it might shed a little more light on what actually went down. I mean, because right now we're reading a lot of articles and we're hearing what people have to say about it. But really, the Constantinos are known for ghost adventures. That was their big break.
Sure, they were on several times. They were on some of the other shows too. They, made appearances. They were the EVP guys. They were considered the experts, the absolute top investigators. She was definitely considered herself to be a sensitive, and she was picking up on things. He thought he was not, basically. And when we talked to them in the interview from 2 years ago, it was weird because their house, their place, it sounded like Spook Central. I mean, she said it is hard to get any rest around here because they're always coming and going.
Yeah, exactly. But as I look at this article as we're talking here, it says Constantino as in Mark, allegedly kidnapped his estranged wife, Deborah, killed her male roommate at their home in Reno on September 22nd. After the murder, Constantino took his wife hostage and fled to their daughter's apartment in Sparks, where there was a standoff with Reno and Sparks police. Now, allegedly, Mark Constantino said, "Give me 15 minutes to gather my thoughts or I'll kill her." Constantino said to Chief Tom Robinson of Reno Police during the negotiations. During the 3-hour standoff with SWAT and the FBI, Constantino murdered his wife, eventually killed himself. He was previously arrested August 8th, as you said, and charged with kidnapping and domestic violence. Now, any of our listeners that are experiencing any domestic violence, I really want you to call 1-800-787-3224. That'll be 1-800, actually I want 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-SAFE. That is the domestic violence hotline. If you're feeling unsafe in any of your relationships at home, you need to give these people a call, and they will do whatever it takes to help you. Just bear that in mind as you listen to this radio show, because we do not want to have to read about you on After Hours AM.
And that is absolutely true. And that just shows you, yes, obviously there were underlying issues that the general public was not aware of. And obviously this was a very contentious relationship.
But now other people are coming forth blaming demons.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. First of all, it is so soon, and it is so early. And we were talking about this before the show, Joel and I, and I'm not going to just dismiss out of hand. I mean, here we are, people who are involved with the paranormal world ourselves. We interview lots of people. Just a year ago, I published, co-authored America's Most Haunted, and so we're involved in this world, and I certainly at least feel it to be plausible that there are demons out there, and that demons do somehow, some way impact people. It's at least plausible as far as I'm concerned, and my religious upbringing, my Lutheran upbringing, really doesn't contradict that point of view at all. But I do think it's much more likely that if, in fact, their living environment over all these years, because think about it, we're talking about over 25 years, if there was this kind of constant interaction and involvement with the paranormal, with the spirit world, at least on Debbie's part, it is certainly possible and likely that would have impacted them, and perhaps in particular him, who hadn't been involved with the paranormal until he met her. And there may have been resentment regarding that. And so even if there's not literally some sort of demonic oppression or possession or whatever involved in this case, it is very, very possible, even likely, that there was a strong psychological impact from all this interaction, with the spirit world. And that is something that could have weighed very heavily upon him. Clearly a volatile personality. I mean, it would appear she was too. That it takes two to fight. But I guess he was determined to end it, wasn't he? Man.
But where do we draw the line between tragedy and the devil made me do it? I mean, because that's a slippery slope.
Point. I'd say our default position always needs to be people need to take responsibility for themselves. And people need to act like adults and to not always be so inclined to pass the blame, whether it's to other people or society or demons, as the case may be.
That's just it.
In this case, all I'm saying, just to be, no pun intended, somewhat devil's advocate here, in this case, it certainly makes more sense than most cases that there could be some sort of demonic or just very negative spirit. A negative spirit does not have to be demonic, as we've discussed many times with many people. If you're a butthole in life, you're probably going to be a butthole as a
But
spirit.
is it just possible as a love gone bad and there were no ghosts involved, no demons involved, just pure rage that we see day after day with this?
Absolutely.
I mean, they are far from the only ones,
Absolutely.
even this month, to have a similar situation.
Is that possible? Of course it's possible. It's probably likely. All I'm saying is, in this particular instance, because of their lifestyle, right?
Yes, I would have to say the
more
lifestyle.
likely than in most situations that there could have been some sort of spirit involvement. That's all I'm saying. Is it more likely that this is what it looks like it is? Yes, it certainly is. People go crazy. People are jealous. People, love-hate is the most volatile form of relationship, and it can turn on a dime. The deepest love can turn into the deepest, most powerful, most bitter hate at
There's
the
a thin line between love and hate, they say.
snap of a finger. And if she had decided to leave him, and it's clear that he snapped when that reality set in.
Well, looking to her Twitter, though, this is very telling of what was going on. Debbie said on September 7th, "Wanted to thank you all for your continued support as I recently separated from Mark and will be filing for divorce." And then she also tweeted September 21st, "The more you love your decisions, the less you need others to love them." Those are all very inflammatory.
Hard. It had to be really hard, and obviously they have had fights. They have had contention. They are volatile people. Things have been going on, it would appear, pretty obviously, for a long, long time. I'm sure this did not just start now. So for her to finally make that decision after all this time, that she had finally had enough, and that was it, obviously, apparently, that just drove him over the edge, and he decided life was not worth living. I don't know if that was literally his decision, but look, when he broke in to where she was living with two roommates and killed one of the roommates, that was the point.
Well, that's it. I mean, that is where the tipping point was decided. That was done. He was going to, murdering an innocent person, obviously out of rage of losing his wife. I get that. I don't get to murder someone, but I understand the rage. I think we've all been there where we've been angry, but we all haven't taken to murder. We all haven't taken to kidnapping.
Well,
we all haven't taken to assault.
The most permanent act. And fortunately, most of us, somewhere, no matter how angry, no matter how upset we get, no matter how enraged we might become. And look, I have a bad temper. I have to admit, and for someone who's my age, it is still, pretty powerful. I have a pretty powerfully bad temper. So I can at least have some inkling in my mind of how it might feel to be that angry and enraged and upset and maybe embarrassed and more, humiliated, all of these things. But I guess I anyway, for myself, thus far in my life, have enough of a moral underpinning, have enough self-control that I haven't gone anywhere near that. Plus, ultimately, you got to say, what am I doing? This is someone I love, or at least used to love. How can I do that to them?
Well, exactly. How can you turn
our children?
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say. How can you turn the gun, literally in this case, on the mother of your children? How can somebody do that and say, "Give me 15 minutes to clear my head, otherwise I'm going to kill her"? Come on. That's the mind of madness right there. Again, if anyone is caught in a relationship this volatile, please talk to somebody. Call your local law enforcement. Talk to somebody. Get out of the situation. We did cite earlier the hotline numbers, so feel free to listen to the podcast and call them. But we got to move on. We got 10 minutes left before we have Joshua Shapiro coming on the show. We're talking crystal skulls. I'll be at the top of next hour. But until then, your America's Most Haunted headlines coming at you right now, man. What do we got in the old hopper for the headlines.
Well, you mean things that don't involve paranormal investigators killing each other?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm ready to move beyond that. By the way, they did just identify the third guy.
We did breaking. Who?
Just seeing that. We'll still move on. But that person has been identified. He's a 55-year-old man. Doesn't appear to be any relationship. It was just a roommate. Place for her to go. Getting out of the house. All right, moving along. Well, I know you're not a big fan, but I'm telling you, got to watch this one. You got to give it a try. American Horror Story.
I am.
Hell, only 2 weeks away.
I am dedicated now to watching this series. I am going to sit down and give it 4 good episodes before I even make an opinion on it.
Good man.
If the 4th episode doesn't grab me.
Whatever your opinion may be on Lady Gaga, and, we don't know. She's a blank slate in terms of acting beyond just her persona. But the fact that she has such a crazy, strong persona, and what I've seen from these promos, which are, as always, with American Horror Story, just bonkers. The promos are just crazy. I think she's going to be a very, very strong character.
I think so.
Speaking of the Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk team, did you watch the debut of Scream Queens on Monday?
I did.
It's hilarious. I loved it.
I watched on my peripheral vision, of course. I was busy with other things, like always, but I love the Scream Queens, but Jamie Lee Curtis will always be number 1.
Oh, she's great. She's great at it. She's as hilarious as the rest of them. And, of course, Emma Roberts, whatever you may think, she plays a bitch, scream queen bitch as well or better than anyone. And her insults, oh, my God, they could not have been more funny. Calling the pledges to the sorority idiot hookers, all right? Or calling them dugongs.
Well, I guess you have to school me on what a dugong is. That I have never heard of a dugong before. And well, Eric, did you leave me, Eric? Are you gone, Eric? Where did you go, Eric? You know what? We're gonna go to break. Fox News coming your way a little bit early. Be right back right after this.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Lisa Lacera. Pope Francis landing at New York's JFK Airport a short time ago as he continues his U.S. trip, about to say Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral on 5th Avenue. Fox Radio's Gernal Scott has this live.
Lisa, Pope Francis was greeted when he stepped off his plane by Cardinal Timothy Dolan, New York's Archbishop. From there, he took a chopper into Manhattan, where he has just landed. It's the second leg of the Pope's American journey. After tonight's prayer service at St. Patrick's, Pope Francis will begin Friday with an address to the leaders of the world at the United Nations. That's ahead of a service at the 9/11 Memorial, a stop to greet immigrants and Catholic school students in Harlem, and a processional through Central Park, and that will end Friday with a Mass at Madison Square Garden, Lisa.
Gernal, this morning, Francis addressed a joint session of Congress with a call to action on climate change.
We must not repeat the sins and the errors of the past.
The White House saying President Obama had the opportunity to watch some of the address and that the president was struck by the message. A witness describes it as a mess of metal, a deadly crash between a charter bus and an amphibious tour vehicle on a Seattle bridge. Fox Radio's Michelle Polino has this live on her West Coast bureau.
Lisa, a charter bus and dock boat collided on a busy Seattle bridge, killing 4 people and sending 44 to area hospitals.
We have triaged a number of patients. We found that 4 passed away already here on scene.
Seattle Fire Chief Harold Scoggins says 12 people remain in critical condition. Mayor Ed Murray.
There's an investigation that needs to take place. There is no fast way to move forward on this.
The scene is described as a mass of smoke, glass, and metal, with some people walking around looking dazed and others lying on the ground. Lisa?
Michelle, the Dow down 79 points, the NASDAQ off 18. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced. The Saudi king expressing condolences after a horrific stampede during a religious pilgrimage.
At least 717 pilgrims are dead and more than 800 others injured after a stampede in Mina. Many of the victims were crushed and trampled to death when one wave of pilgrims headed into another mass of pilgrims going in another direction. Mina is about 3 miles from Mecca. There have been stampede deaths there before. Saudi Arabia deployed some 100,000 security forces in an attempt to control the crowds. Critics complain the kingdom isn't doing enough to ensure security. In the Mideast Bureau, Jessica Gallagher, Fox News Radio.
Colored contacts that can make brown eyes vampire red or yellow to perfect a Halloween costume may also make it harder to see at night. That's according to a new study out of Korea. Researchers did a small study of people wearing regular contacts, then repeated the test with the colored lenses. The less clear zone on the lens, the harder it was for people to see. The North Carolina father charged with trying to drown his 3 kids, fearing authorities would take custody of them, could now be facing a murder charge.
Police in Durham, North Carolina say Alan Tysheen Eugene Lassiter is facing a murder charge now that one of his 3 kids has died following his attempt to drown them all. The young girl was underwater when police got to her, says Chief Jose Lopez.
Whether you have children or not, you're impacted by young lives who are placed in such a horrendous situation.
Lassiter also has another daughter and a son. He told a 911 operator he was trying to prevent child welfare services from taking the kids away as he was being investigated for pedophilia. Eben Brown, Fox News Radio.
It was supposed to just be a test, but someone goofed at the National Weather Service, putting Connecticut's shoreline under a tsunami warning this morning. The alert went out to all 4 coastal counties and part of Long Island Sound. The Weather Service later issuing a statement saying the warning was sent by mistake. Lisa Lacera, Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. Eric Olson is back. I promise the glitch ended. He is back. Eric, you're in the middle of a sentence. He just left me. Come on, man.
God, I know. Talk about left hanging.
You know, and we're
that was. I don't know what happened. I think the universe did not want you to know what a dugong is.
What is a dugong?
A sea cow.
A sea cow. Okay, well.
So is that an insult or is that a
That is an insult. That's a bad insult.
I love it. And to see Ariana Grande stabbed to death, you know, there are people who are not unhappy about that.
Well, that is true. She was kind of a nasty person.
We really didn't get to meet her in that episode, but she was the first of these sorority victims. But we will move on in a very much friendlier note as far as on the screen. I am very excited. Hotel Transylvania 2 opens tomorrow. Drac is back, getting really good early reviews.
Are you going to go see it?
I love the first one. It was really good, I thought.
Are you going to go see it, though? Are you going to go sit through it and watch it?
I will go see it. I don't know if I'll go see it, but I'll see it.
Take the wife, go out, say, hey, honey, we're going to go to
You know, even the kids, there aren't that many movies that all 4 of us, in terms of the 2 younger kids, the wife and I all want to see. You know, either some combination of 3 of us want to see it and someone's left out. But once in a while, I think they both kids did like the first one, so maybe we can drag them out to go see that. I would like to. I don't get out to the movie theater nearly as often as I'd like to. I'm just too flippin' busy. I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Then the expense, man. $10 a ticket?
Expensive.
Come on. $100 gone even before you get in the movie theater. It's unreal. It's unreal these days.
All right, we're running out of time here. I just wanted to squeeze in one more. If you're following along at home, we're feeding off of the AM Haunted Twitter account, America's Most Haunted, that I take care of, lord over every day. I'm doing my research. And we have yet another alleged man-made, or I should say intelligently made, structure on Mars.
I'm looking at that. It's a bunch of rocks. See
Mars Henge, it's being called, because it kind of looks like a circle, a concentric circles of stone with a square in the center. What, as if I don't know, is your opinion on this, Joel?
I think it's pareidolia.
I think it is too.
And pareidolia being basically seeing like what you want to see.
Seeing patterns.
It's pure and simply, it's pareidolia, folks. Don't get excited. There are no Martians coming to get you because of the structure. It's just people with a marker drawing what they think you should be seeing. So that's right, folks.
I mean, you don't think those red dots are on Mars?
No, somehow I think someone drew those on there. Call me crazy, but I think someone drew those on there.
All right, we got like super quick 10, 20-second thing.
All right.
John Wayne Gacy is solving cold case missing person cases from the grave.
Why? Because he killed them, I'm sure. And they're fighting his other victims.
No, it's because there are still, or there were, they've identified one. There were 8 unidentified victims of his that Chicago really, really wanted to identify. And now, of course, you have all this DNA evidence. You have all these databases. So it's becoming easier and easier to do this. And so there have been a number of cases now solved, cold cases solved, just incidentally, not on purpose, because of the effort to identify these final 8, and they have identified one, so now there's 7 of Gacy's victims.
Very good. Very, very interesting. It'll be interesting to see what all unfolds from that. It really will be. But, as promised, we got to move on. We got to move on because we have the one, the only Joshua Shapiro with us here. We're going to be talking crystal skulls. Want to fill the people in, Eric, a little bit on Joshua?
Well, sure.
I put you on the spot, didn't I?
I would be happy to. Joshua and his life partner Katrina and their 20-plus crystal skulls, they call themselves the Crystal Skull Explorers. His main website is www.crystalskullexplorers.com. They have a brand new website, www.crystalskullexplorers.com. And he has quite simply, since 1983, he has become the Crystal Skull Guy. He offers a free Crystal Skull ebook and newsletters. He is co-sponsors of Crystal Skull World Day, and that's coming up November 22nd. We'll certainly be talking about that. And the last book they published is about the blue crystal skull of Peru. They're working on 2 new novels, and he is heading off to Belgium in early October to spend time at a crystal shop in Ghent. I forget how you pronounce it. How do you pronounce that in Belgian there, Joshua?
Ghent.
Ghent. Yeah,
look at that. You had it right down there. Well, Joshua, welcome to After Hours AM, man. It is a pleasure and an honor to speak with you.
My pleasure to be here. Always interested to speak about Crystal Skull.
Heck yeah, I gotta ask you, right off the top, how the heck did a nice guy like you get wrapped up into something like this?
Well, just like most people who start to have an interest in crystal skulls, they meet one and it has an effect on them, and they want to know more, and then all of a sudden they start to become a guardian of some, and then they meet, a life partner who also has a strong connection. But my journey, as Eric said, started in 1983 when I saw an amethyst crystal skull at a metaphysical bookstore there. So that's how I got started, and I had real special experiences with it. But there was one important message I received even before I saw this crystal skull, just looking at a picture of it. And what I felt was, and this has not changed in over 32 years since I've been involved, is that these crystal skulls are sacred artifacts that are starting to come back now to help humanity create world peace.
Now, I got to ask you, how old are these crystal skulls? I mean, some of them are extremely, have proven to be just really, really old. The pre-Columbian origin, in fact, some of them.
Well, as far as I understand at this point in time, we don't have an exact science to be able to date these skulls because, when archaeologists go into these digs and they're looking for ancient artifacts, they use carbon-14 dating because the artifacts they're dating are from living, substances, people that were alive and so on. But of course, all these crystal skulls that they're finding in these ancient ruins are made out of quartz crystal or other gemstones, and there's no way to date them. Now, because of that, it makes it very controversial because the best way I could summarize it is I would say that these skulls they're finding, plus the ones that people are adopting, the new ones being made by modern carvers, once they become what we call activated, where they're kind of like alive, they all seem to have certain types of electromagnetic frequencies and energies that they emanate. And because of those frequencies and energy, and especially quartz crystal has the ability, I believe, to record vibrationally everything around it, mediums, spiritual sensitives, have been able to work with some of the purportedly older crystal skulls and talk about them coming from Atlantis, Lemuria, or even the possibility of extraterrestrials bringing them down here as gifts to help us in our spiritual evolution.
So you're saying that there's some level of consciousness with these skulls?
Absolutely. I tried to explain this. I was doing a television show for National Geographic, and I tried to explain that the common phenomenon that the Guardians have once they start getting their own crystal skulls is the skulls are communicating with them. Now, from a scientific or let's say a physical perspective, people say that's crazy. All those people are crazy. These thousands of people have skulls. They're nuts. They're crazy. But in fact, what's happening is because of the material in which the skulls are made from, I believe that there exists, and I understand your show, you cover a lot of different aspects of the paranormal, is that this I call it a living consciousness. I mean, behind me we have, what I call my crystal children, and I hear them in my mind. Katrina, my partner, will hear it outside of her ear. And I think what it is there's a consciousness that's able to use this as a tool to work through and communicate with us. So a lot of the guardians give their skulls names, and each one seems to have a certain frequency of energy that they help people with. Like we have one which is an indigenous skull called Geronimo Golden Eagle Eye, and he likes drumming and to work with indigenous energies. And then we have the first skull that came to me, which told me the name was Portal de Luz, Portal of Light, and he seems to be more like a cosmic crystal skull, some ET contact, dimensional contact, kind of a jack of all trades. So, these are the experiences, not that just we're having, but many other people who write to us. So the only way that I've been able to explain the commonality of the experience is just to say there's a living consciousness that has the ability to work through the skulls and kind of like animate them. They become like, people, friends, part of your family. So it's a very strange concept, but as people have this experience, when I talk to people who have crystal skulls and have the opportunity to speak publicly or whatever, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And so all I can do is try to describe this for people who've not had this experience.
Well, the only skull that I'm even vaguely familiar with is, of course, the Mitchell Hedges skull. That has been around for quite some time. Of course, made its rounds because they found that skull, many years ago.
1924.
Exactly.
24.
Yep, 1924, and of course that one's made its rounds. But now you're saying that a skull can be created tomorrow by a carver, and somehow given its own personality or its own persona. Now, how does one go about, or does the persona come to it without any interference from man?
Well, I think the most difficult thing is there's not a specific way how this happens. It seems to be connected to whoever the individual is, the guardian, and what is their spiritual path, what are they doing, and then how, once the skull comes to them, and a lot of times people say that they're not picking the crystal skulls, it's almost as if the skulls are picking them, which is what I felt. A lot of the skulls that have come to us have pretty much been gifted. Although, of course, you go on eBay and you can buy a crystal skull, and there are people who get skulls through us as well. But I would say that the process seems to be connected to the individual and the path that they're living. Because, like, for example, let's say there's a person, they don't believe in the paranormal, they don't believe in anything spiritual or whatever, and they get a crystal skull. Well, they might be at the mercy of other energies the skull has picked up, because we've heard stories like that where, maybe, I don't know, how can I phrase this? It's like any other object that exists. It can be used in a positive way to help people, which is what I think the original purpose of having crystal skulls were, that were gifted to humanity. And then humanity could say, well, I want to use that for my own purpose and try to use it more selfishly. And then, there's some discussion like maybe some of these Mesoamerican cultures in their later days where they lost their original teachings, they started to use the skulls as sacrifices, which for me has nothing to do with what the skulls are about. They're receptacles of knowledge. They store a lot of information and knowledge that I think people can receive telepathically or through their spiritual gifts. Or I believe that they have collected a lot of very powerful energies that have the chance to do healing for people or to activate them so they have their own gifts. So I think what happens is, a person is kind of attracted to one. Let's say they see it on the internet or they meet us in person, and we have different ones that are available. We say they're seeking their homes, and they feel a connection to it, and they start meditating with it and working with it, and all of a sudden they start having this communication. So it's I think it's just it's a tool that's being used by spirit that to help us indirectly and subtly, because this is where our civilization is right now. There's so much incredible knowledge that's coming out now. I mean, it's like I keep going to the library and reading paranormal book upon paranormal book, and I'm totally amazed at the understanding and the knowledge and the bringing back of probably things that were commonplace maybe in Atlantis or Lemuria. So I think the crystal skulls are coming out now because they're a tool that's helping us to bring back, let's say, that ancient wisdom and knowledge, and that where we're headed, what I believe, that we're going to see world peace in the near future. At least that's what my future self shows me, if you understand what that means.
Very
Please explain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this is what I believe, and there are other people that are leaning in that direction. I believe that time, as we know it, past, present, and future, we see time moving in that direction where we're in the physical, but on the level of spirit, all time and all space coexist in the same place at the same time spontaneously. Now, the current book that I'm reading, and I'm trying to contact this author because we're starting a new membership service very soon, and I'm interviewing different people that our members will be able to hear those interviews with. Like, I just interviewed, I work so much during the day, and I'm getting older. My memory's going. The guy who did the skull experiment, Robin Foy, somebody whispered it to me, so I remember it, where it was probably the most powerful paranormal experience that's happened in modern times, where they were having direct contact with spirit. So if time doesn't really exist, I mean, we have the illusion of it here, that means they exist on a spiritual level. Using our spiritual gifts, we could have a communication with either one of our past selves or a future self in this lifetime. So that's what I was referring to. I have my future self who says his name or my name will become Argus in the future, and that he exists beyond 2037. And what I see is by this time, our world has total peace. That all these challenges and things going on, but he doesn't show me how, because he says, if I tell you everything that's going to happen, then you won't become who I am going to become. You have to go through your experiences, but I can show you what you're moving toward. So I believe that through this medium we call spirit exists the possibility to have communication with our past selves, our future selves, because those experiences are happening right now in this moment. So the best I've been able to do is link into, while I'm here in my current lifetime, and watch things going on like in 3 other lifetimes. that I'm aware of that
Sure.
could have been me or I was connected to.
Wow.
Or like, the idea, when we allow our imagination to go wild. Well, you're still in your body while you're doing it, but you seem to be somewhere else at the same time. So this is, I think, scientists are starting to realize that there's something behind what we think is physical matter, where we don't really understand what time is about. That unless we look at it, like there was one book I read that said the theory of relativity, they couldn't prove it until they subtracted time from that theory, and then everything flowed together perfectly. So
Interesting. Well, I got a question for you to go really
Yeah.
quick. Is there a possibility, now I've heard over the years that the crystal skulls, the older ones they found, way
Mhm.
back, could have been used as almost like a modern day computer chip that they actually house information. Have you heard that theory?
Oh yeah, and I 100% agree with it. When I've been in the presence of what I believe are some of these older skulls, Mitchell Hedges, Me, which was the first skull I saw that was amethyst crystal skull that was found near an ancient ruin in Mexico, Synergy, Max, ET. These are some of the different ones that, let's say, people within the crystal skull community have strong feelings could be quite old. There definitely is the sensation and feeling that they have absorbed, that they've recorded everything that's happened in their proximity, which would be like knowledge and information. And the only way that we've been able to bring out this information, although I think there's going to be a technology, let's say that this future guy Argus keeps showing me some kind of monitor attached to a crystal skull, that one day it's going to display pictures coming from the skull that it's recorded around it, which is like our modern day computers, right?
Oh,
You go on
exactly.
your computer, you got video you can watch, graphics, you could send it to people all over the world, and they have the access to that. And besides the fact, all the modern technology right now is using quartz crystals to channel the electrical current and amplify it so that our devices work. So it's the same material as the skulls.
Well, it's been
So-
widely recognized that some material, like crystal and like limestone and other stones, actually can maintain and capture emotion. I mean, in hauntings, for instance, when people talk about having residual hauntings, like having the thing played back over and over, a spirit, a lot of times limestone and silica and crystal are actually present. It's as if it's being captured, that snapshot's being captured in time and just played back. Now, that could be through the stone. Is the stone actually projecting this out there? Or, I mean, it's still, debate is still raging on what's causing it. But really, I think the theory that's holding information very well could be a relevant one.
Yes, and that's what I feel the skulls are doing too. Is they're recording vibrationally everything that's going on around them. So I think if we ever develop this monitor, or we have, let's say, some sensitives who are really connected with the crystal skulls, they're going to be able to bring back the true history that's happened to our world, which I don't think any of us have been taught or shown in school. Again, this is what's coming out of the books, is that a lot of things have been changed. We don't understand how things work, but all this sacred knowledge is starting to come out. The internet, whatever you want to learn about, it's essentially there. And also, too, the other thing that fascinates me is some hypnotic techniques to individuals that developed it, where they're speaking to some other higher aspect of the soul, bringing forth knowledge, because then that not only is there no time and space, but we think that, we're just in our physical body, but I think that there's other aspects of ourselves which we return to when we go to sleep at night. And sometimes it may show up like, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever felt this, where all of a sudden there's this like extra energy and extra insight that just like flows inside of you, which you have no idea where it's coming from. And I think it's being sent by a higher aspect of ourselves, that in that moment you need to be more fully present, let's say, than you are normally. I notice the same thing when I do my presentations. It's like, sometimes I'm going, now, what the heck am I going to talk to with all these people? They've probably read all my books. They know everything about the crystal skulls and all that. But then all of a sudden, as I get started, it's like I'm overshadowed by something else. And,
It
it's the
feels
same
like
thing
you're
with
channeling.
performers.
It's like you're
Yeah,
channeling. It's not
it could
coming
be.
from you. It's coming from somewhere else, and you're just the conduit. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had that experience, especially more on an artistic level.
Yeah.
Sometimes, once in a while, when I'm writing, I wish it was more often, but when I'm
Mhm.
writing, sometimes when I'm playing music, certainly
Yeah.
maybe feel it most often. Then it's like, wow, that didn't come from me. I'm not responsible for that. That came from somewhere else. Thank you so much for letting me be the channel. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Joshua, is all of this information, all of this knowledge that you've gained over the last 30 plus years or so since you've been involved with the skulls, is this information coming to you via the skulls, or is this just research you've done outside of it? Are you gaining this information directly from the skulls themselves?
I think that the information that I receive from the skulls themselves is more about how to work with them. Like, since we have so many, as I'm meditating and working with the different one, it's kind of like each one shows me some other aspect of the skull. So I don't think that the knowledge per se that I'm discussing comes necessarily directly from them. However, consider this. What if the crystal skulls are like a mini energy vortex? And being around them in this mini energy vortex activates your spiritual gifts so that you're able to receive more clearly. Like, I go back to the book I did for my Dutch publisher, this big skull I have, Portal de Luz. He was sitting right there by my computer, and I was amazed what clarity I had, how to take all this diverse information I had collected about crystal skulls over the years, and it just was like I knew exactly this information goes in that chapter. We need to set up these chapters. So, and then also as I was writing, I felt like the skull being present elevated the vibrational frequency of the environment around me. So let's say the invisible friends that help you when you write, which I'm sure I have that help all the time. It was I'm hearing like, you could say it like this. And I go, yeah, that would sound really good. And that's simple. So people could
Yeah.
understand this concept.
Now,
So,
Beans, I
go
don't mean
ahead.
to interrupt you, but Beans, crystal is like we covered earlier. It's a recorder, more or less. It's a recording stone. Now, could the maker's own essence, the person that originally carved it, I'm talking about the older stones, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because it's amazing that there's no tool marks on these skulls, and
Some of them, yeah.
I mean, some of them, just boggles my mind that they're able to do that kind of detail without modern technology and what we consider modern technology and modern tools. But do you think that some of the essence of the maker is inside the skull, and that's what's directing you?
Well, that very possibly could be. Now, there's a book called The Skull Speaks that Anna Mitchell Hedges, when she was alive, before that crystal skull went to her friend Bill Holman, she supported this book. It was with Carol Wilson Davies, who was a medium, and when this Carol was around the Mitchell Hedges skull, I guess the first time, she went into an altered state of consciousness, wasn't even aware of what she was talking about. And then when she came back and everybody was like looking at her at the amazing information that came through her, one of her comments was that the creators of the Mitchell Hedges skull actually were able to duplicate a level of their, let's say, personality, intelligence, consciousness, and they placed that inside of the skull. So what you just asked me about, I believe that's true. That even today with the modern carvers like Portal de Luz, my friend Leandro from Brazil, he's becoming very well known as a key crystal skull carver. Everybody loves the skulls he makes and so on. He made thousands of skulls. I can't even imagine how somebody could do that. But he's been able to do this, and I could say that there is a little part of him, as he's carving the skull and making it that's inside. So I think, with the more advanced skulls, that the originators of this, if it's very ancient cultures like Atlantis or Lemuria, or if it's extraterrestrial, if they come from the beings that live inside the inner earth or the hollow earth, wherever they're coming from. I think that a part of that culture, that level of consciousness, definitely is placed by the creators of the skulls, too.
Huh.
Another issue, the issue, I guess, for my benefit, but also for our listeners who may not really be very familiar with the various theories surrounding them. Why don't you give us just the absolute fundamental, kind of the most basic worldview of what these skulls are, what do they do, where do they come from, what is their purpose? Just give us kind of a nice synopsis of what the going thought is right now, or what your thought is, an overview of the crystal skull experience.
Okay, well, historically, there wasn't really an interest in the crystal skulls until maybe the early part of the 20th century. Some skulls started to come out, but they didn't really understand them. They put them in museums. Mitchell Hedges skull came out, like I said, 1924. Max, I think, came out in the 1920s. So, and there were a couple of crystal skulls prior to this in the 1800s that were in museums, like the British Museum skull, 1898. One in Paris was 1878. There was a family in Mexico who had a small skull that had, what was it? It had a hole in the top of it and a gold cross dated 1571. They had it from the 1800s. So these skulls were coming out, but really, I think the strong interest in the skull starts in the 70s when Arthur C. Clarke has his Mysterious World program, and he's showing the Mitchell Hedges skull in there. Richard Garvin writes his book, The Crystal Skull, came out, I think it was 73 or 76. Mm-hmm. And then we move forward into the 1990s, where the carvers start really creating a lot of skulls, and that's when people start going nuts. They got to have their own skull. So that's kind of overview.
It was the New Age movement that really brought it to the forefront.
Well, the New Age movement, of course, respected that quartz crystals was a tool for helping one develop their spiritual gifts and awakening. So naturally, a crystal skull that's made out of that same material is gonna draw people too. But as far as the different types of skulls, there's 4 different types that are defined. 3 were defined by the Crystal Skull Society, which came out in I think it was in the late 1940s. Fr. Nick Nasarino, who was a co-author of one of the books that I worked on called Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, talked about 3 different types of skulls. The modern ones being made now, old crystal skulls, which would be made over 100 years ago, and then it depends on the researcher, it's 1,000, 2,000 years. Sure. And then the very old ones, which people call ancient. I don't like to use that word because people are misusing it. Everybody's saying, oh, this skull I have is ancient, giving the impression that an ancient skull is more important than the old or the new or the other category, which I haven't defined yet. I think what our crystal skulls have told us is every single crystal skull is important, that they all work together like a whole network. They respect each other, their family. They don't fight with each other like human beings fight with each other. And they're just here to assist us. The newer skulls have more of the energy of modern times. The older, very old skulls have energies from ancient times. But all those energies are necessary, not only to understand the skulls, but to be here to help humanity to awaken. Now, the 4th category, which we add to this because we have one of these kind of skulls, is what is called an apported crystal skull. Now, for students of the paranormal, they know that through mediums, objects are being apported in their spiritual seances and sessions. Well, one of these mediums that we met here in the Seattle area where we live, he received a message, and it told him that we had to come to one of his seances. He said some Galactic Crystal Skull Council told him we have to be there. So we went to a seance, and the next thing we know, a crystal skull is being apported through him. A lot of his apports came through his physical body. This particular time, it came through an energy vortex in his mouth, but it wasn't the only object. There were like other gemstones, jewelry, about 40 objects, but there was another time that we talked to people who watched this, where over 1,000 small items, and we have some of those with us, were reported through him in one session.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. We got to run a break, though. We'll be right back right after this. We're going to ask some questions about those crystal skulls. Paranormal. Can it cure cancer? Can it tell the future? Find out more right after this.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
She's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
But what do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Hi, I'm Kip Parker. And I'm Charlie Parker. And we're the Parker Brothers. Hey, Charlie, what's missing from our game catalog? I don't know, Kip. Tell me. Well, you can't talk to the dead. You sure as hell can. That's why we got this brand new game called Ouija. Ouija? Well, break that down for me. Well, it's Wii because you're having a great time, and G, it's because G, aren't you having a blast because you're having a good time with the Wii. It looks like it smelled like a Chinaman got caught in there. Don't question it. Well, Ouija, Kip, tell me about it. Well, inside the package comes a flat board with all the letters of the alphabet, numbers from 0 to 9, and a yes-no written out by itself. Well, that sounds like a lot of stuff going on. It's got a lot of stuff going on indeed, Charlie. It also comes with this planchette, which hovers over the letters the dead are trying to tell you. Well, how does that work, Chip? Well, you ask the question, and then the dead move your hands in the direction of the answers. That sounds like a heck of a way to find Grandpa's slave money. Turns out it was in the attic. But the questions don't have to be as serious as slavery. You can also find out if Sally's got a crush on you. The dead like to answer all sorts of trivial questions. Feels like they'd have better things to do with their time, Kip. No, lost souls are lost forever, and they're really glad to help. Well, gee, Kip, can't you just get any sort of board with numbers and letters and talk to the dead? The dead prefer quality like anybody else. Quality you can only find at Parker & Parker.
The Ouija board, brought to you by the Parker Brothers, available in both white and colored wallworks. Separate but equal savings.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Along with me is Mr. Eric Olson. That's right, Eric Olson. But we're talking all things crystal skulls tonight with Joshua. Not just Joshua Shapiro, but Joshua, the keeper of the crystal skull. Shapiro. But we are back with Joshua Shapiro, and we're talking all
That's
things.
a long middle name.
It is, right? Well, he adopted that. No, just kidding. Of course, he didn't adopt that. But many people look to him as being the oracle of the crystal skull. Okay, there's lots of things that could throw at you, but I'll stop now. But when we were leaving, I was actually told today by somebody that there is a rumor out there, and I did look this up, and yeah, some people have said this, that the crystal skulls can cure cancer. Have you ever heard that term? Have you ever heard that being thrown around in the community of crystal skulls, that they can cure cancer?
I don't know if I actually heard about cancer per se, but there are a lot of stories told, some with these very ancient skulls. Definitely Mitchell Hedges received reports of this, where people who had, say, incurable illnesses or some psychological problems, injuries from accidents, that they actually were in the presence of the Mitchell Hedges skull and went back to their doctor, and the doctor couldn't explain how they had recovered from whatever their condition was. So I do believe that there is a healing energy, and the reason, well, I could tell you one story from Poland that was pretty interesting with our skulls. There was a young boy who came to our private sessions, and his situation is he had like some problem with his eyes where they had to use chemicals trying to correct it. And every time that they would use the chemicals, he would go into the doctors and so trying to cure his condition, he would have to stay in his bed for like 3 or 4 days. So he came and had a session with us, and I don't remember how many crystal skulls we had then. I'm guessing, probably 5 or 6 were with us. And he went to the doctor to get his, the chemicals for his eyes, and that was after our session, and he was still able to go out and play with his friends the same day. So I thought that was a very profound story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's...
And our skulls are not these very old ones. These are modern skulls. I mean, they've been in the presence of like Mitchell Hedges and the E.T. skull and Synergy and so on. So I believe that...
Well, Joshua, what you need to do, I don't want to cut you off, but the Pope is in town, as in America. You need to run over there and have him bless one of these skulls.
Oh, I wouldn't have him do that.
And see what happens.
I have already done, not with the Pope, but with some Native American elders, we've had them do blessings on the skull. That seems to be more appropriate than the Pope. I would have to pass.
I was just going to say, if the Pope will bless it, because he's blessing everything else. See what kind of power it might magnify, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I think what the Pope would do is he would put the sign of the cross in front of him as soon as he saw the skull.
That very well could be the case, too. But we didn't really discuss, let me back up for a second, where did these original skulls, in your best estimation, come from? What civilization made them?
Well, if we go by what I call soul memory, and this is something that everybody has, but not everybody trusts it. They think it's their imagination. Soul memory for me is where I'm thinking about something and I start to visualize in my mind spontaneously, a scene or a place or something like this. So most definitely my soul remembers working with crystal skulls in Atlantis. Now, I think that the level that we're at right now is very close to the level where they were in Atlantis with our technology and so on. We're kind of coming back to that. And what I see in my mind's eye is I see being in temples, and there's some theories that talk about there were 13 temples in Atlantis, and each one had one of these crystal skulls, and people could actually go in the temple and do meditation with it, or they did ceremonies with it, etc. So I think that this is possibly one of the places, and they didn't carve the skulls as they're being done now. They probably used some kind of techniques which we hadn't heard about. Like in our the first book I did on the crystal skulls with Nasserino and Bowen, there was a person, we could call him a channel, who was talking about these advanced technologies the Atlanteans had, where they would either, let's say there was a very respected person they would change their entire bone structure into quartz crystals so that it would record their wisdom and their knowledge that could be used afterwards. Or they were also talking about through the power of the mind, they would literally visualize these skulls and they would bring them down into physical reality so they could be an airport as well. So Atlantis seems to be one place where crystal skulls existed, and I've talked to, like I say, a lot of other people, and they have memories of this. Another place which connects me to this blue skull that I think Eric talked about in the beginning, the last book that we put out about the blue skull in Peru, is Lemuria. When I went to Peru between 1997 and 2002, I took 3 trips there, mostly to the northern part of Peru, which is not, let's say, one of the main areas people take you on tours. But there were pre-Inca cultures that existed in the northern area of Peru. I was kind of, let's say, subtly guided to high up in the mountains, like 14,000 feet, where shamans take people in the northern part of Peru to these lagoons, sacred lagoons they call them. But the one I went to is called the Black Lagoon, Laguna Negra. And I had a lot of visions about a temple in Lemuria being here, and there being at least, I guess, 12 or 13 skulls in glass cases in a circular room. But I also saw this sky blue, totally translucent, 2-piece, movable jaw, top part, crystal skull being there in Lemuria. So this, for me, could be another place where crystal skulls were created, and then when these civilizations were destroyed, and I have this memory from Atlantis. Again, when I was in Peru, I had visions of being on some kind of flying ship, like a anti-gravity UFO type ship that the Atlanteans probably had with their technology. And as Atlantis was destroyed, taking sacred objects and going to Peru and burying them in places to be found in the future. And we're now in that future time, and that's what I think is happening to a lot of people. Is they're feeling drawn, they got to go to this country or that country or this sacred site. They don't know why, but it's because of a past life connection. They did something there, they play something there that they have to find and bring up. So these would be 2 possibilities. And then also in our first book, Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, which is out of print, we ourselves only have 2 copies left. We did 10,000 back in 1989, and I think there were 2,000 done in Portuguese in Brazil. There was a discussion about the people in the hollow earth, so this gets into another whole area of paranormal.
Sure, we've talked about that on the show, the hollow earth theory.
Right. So according to what this channel talked about in our book, is that galactic beings came to our planet a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure that who we are was because our DNA got changed by these galactic beings. I mean, they can find the missing link. The missing link is the galactic beings altered us to become who we are today, I'm sure.
So you're thinking that they are part of what we would call lately the ancient aliens theory.
Yeah, exactly. Except the aliens never left, I don't think. I think they're still here. But anyway, going to the hollow earth, in Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, we talked about that there were like 12 galactic races that came to the earth. 6 stayed on the surface, 6 went into the inner earth, and they all brought with them a crystal skull with a crystal body that had their genetic coding and knowledge of their race and buried in it. And so purportedly then, this could be linked to the legend of the original 13 skulls, that they were the ones that were brought here, and then all the other skulls that we're seeing and meeting and the ones being created are all duplicates or inspired by those original 13. So these are some of the different theories that are talked about where, let's say, the so-called ancient or very old skulls came from. And then seems from indigenous legends that the skulls were too powerful, so they were hidden away. And perhaps now we're in a time where they need to come back, and that's why all of a sudden, people are finding crystal skulls in Mexico and Central America, and there were some found in parts of Russia or Poland. So they're just like coming out everywhere. And it's, I think, because humanity requires this sacred artifact to help us to build a peaceful world.
It's almost as if as if it's time for its renewal now, where it can be of use where before we didn't have the capabilities or even the understanding to begin to appreciate the true power of the skull.
Well, the Mesoamerican people, they had crystal skulls and they worked with them. But I think from a modern perspective, I agree with your statement. I think now, with all this information that's coming out and so many people becoming involved in their own spiritual path and having their own spiritual or paranormal experiences now, we're moving in this direction. And so we're more accepting of, these kind of tools. Because I don't think you can understand the crystal skulls just looking at them from a scientific or archaeological perspective. There's an energy around them that's affecting people. The scientists don't want to look at that. So people like myself who, got involved with it and just feel like they're really important to help humanity, then we try the best that we can. I've done some kind of scientific tests with different equipment to try to understand this energy that seems to be around the skull.
Yeah,
that's the commonality is the energy.
What have you yielded? I mean, just energy. It's more or less like if you use the EMF detector, it's measurable, like an electromagnetic field, or what kind of energy is it putting out?
Well, the main device that we've worked with, which I tried to do some tests, and it was recorded for the Sci-Fi Channel. They had a 2-hour documentary on the crystal skulls after the last Indiana Jones film came out.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a Meridian Stress Test System. The Meridian Stress Test System measures the meridian frequencies in a patient's hands and feet. There are certain places that they have mapped out. It's like acupressure, where they put these needles in certain places that are like energy lines in the body, and then they'll balance it out or heal the person using that. They have an electrode where they go specifically to the meridian points, and then it's attached to a computer, so they get a measurement. And how the measurement works is it's a small current that goes into the skin, and the device is able to see the resistance to the current. If there's 50% resistance, then that point they're measuring, which could be an organ in the body, a chakra, some circulatory system in the body. They have it mapped out where these meridian points are linked to. 50% of the current going through means that specific meridian is in total balance. So it gives you numbers between 100 and 0. So we were able to compare these numbers. What we did is Bill Holman said, what you have to do when you do your tests, you got to blindfold people so they don't know what are you testing them with. Mm-hmm. And the machine has a metal plate that it is able to see how the person responds to the object on there. Like what they would use for to help heal a person is they'll try different medicinal or herbal substances they'll put on there, and they'll see which substance does the person work well with that'll balance some imbalance in their body. So what we did is we did 3 tests. We put a piece of quartz crystal like the skull we're testing. We did nothing, and we put the skull on there. And the results of the test showed that when we compared to the baseline reading with the skull, 90% of the readings were either the same or were improved. This is with a crystal skull that's activated. Mm-hmm. If we tested them with the piece of quartz, the same as the skull, there was some improvement, but it wasn't 90%. Maybe it was 60 or 60.
So you're actually doing some real scientific research. I really commend you for that.
Right. So but the only thing we could do is we could only measure the reaction of the energy of the skull on the person. So we're measuring the person's response to that energy. That's what the Meridian Stress Test System did. Then we tried one other experiment where we took 2 newly carved skulls that had no guardian, no owner, and we placed it next to Portal de Luz, who's like traveled all over the world, been to sacred sites. Thousands of people have touched him, been in the presence, of the so-called ancient skulls. So Portal de Luz is really very active. Mm-hmm. And we tested people before the skulls were placed next to him, and we saw the result. It wasn't very good, but after being in his presence for only 5 or 10 minutes, and then putting that skull next to the person and again measuring them, there was a significant increase. So what we saw was is this very concept that if you take like a new skull that, hasn't been worked with that much, or, hasn't been used very much, and you put it next to one that's active, the one that's active is going to start transferring energy to that one and start activating it.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And of course, we did stuff with Carillion cameras too, and we saw the same thing, that the skulls were, amplifying the person's aura, and tested with chakras and so on. But the most interesting experiment with Portal de Luz is when we used a Lecuyer antenna, which is like a dowsing rod with numbers on it. And what happens is when it measures a specific frequency of energy, it flips. So what they did is they did a measurement on the energy coming from Portal de Luz, and what they measured was he was broadcasting the frequencies of energy of the 5 physical senses of a human being. The teacher of these students said, "This is impossible, this is a stone, it should not be doing that, do it again." And they had to do it 3 times, and every time he showed those frequencies of energy. So I thought that was amazing also.
It's very interesting that you're getting tangible, actual, readable results. It's not just purely faith, but you're actually doing some scientific testing to really bring to bear that there is some differences in how these skulls react. I really give you kudos for that, because a lot of people wouldn't go to that extent because they're afraid that the testing might not prove anything, and B, well, faith is faith. But I really got to tell you, good work on doing your due diligence as far as the scientific end of things as well.
Well, as much as we could do it. Of course, I'm not a scientist. I would say I'm a computer scientist.
But it's hard to get legitimate, I use that loosely, mainstream science to take any kind of notice at these things. Don't bother me with the facts, my mind's already made up kind of thinking. They refuse to go down to that level, in their minds. The paranormal, what are you talking about? We're not going to go that level. So it's good that you're trying to move it forward. I really, like I said, applaud you for that.
Well, I wanted to try to see if I could explain why so many people are feeling the energy around the skulls. So if we could test it somehow. And I think that these 2 tests that we did were pretty significant. So, and we did the same test for the Sci-Fi Channel with the Mitchell Hedges skull and with Portal de Luz, and they didn't air that research. So I have it, and I think for the new membership, I'm going to put out the results of those tests, which I've never done before. So,
Joshua, why? What I'm thinking about is why skulls? In other words, you have this material, you have this energy that is stored and or channeled within this material. Why skulls? Why not crystal kneecaps or, whatever?
Well, we're always asked this question no matter where we go, so I'm prepared. I would say that it's the same as, why does a human being have a skull? What is its purpose? And I think we have to go with what indigenous people say is the crystal skulls allow communication with the Godhead, so therefore they're in a shape of the Godhead, which is the same shape of the skulls that we have inside of ourselves. I believe that the skull, it's shaped like a pyramid. If you go 1/3 of a way down in a pyramid, it rejuvenates metal, and I also understand it will rejuvenate and accelerate your DNA as well. It's the shape of the skull, probably was created by, advanced spirit long time ago, saying if we create, living beings that want to have experience in the physical and be able to have, hands so they can create things, in a mind that can think about it, the perfect shape to enclose their brain, which controls their body and is their communication channel to their soul or spirit, is going to be the shape of the bone skull. So I think that the shape of the bone skull allows us to receive cosmic knowledge and information. So if you take crystal, which is already a material that's a transmitter and receiver of all these different frequencies of energies in different dimensions, and you put it into that shape like we have, and it's going to become a powerful receptacle to receive cosmic knowledge and information and be able, because it looks like us, people will accept it's in our image. That knowledge and information and energy then can be relayed to us. Some people might say that's kind of like sympathetic magic, but that's what I think the skull represents, and that's why people would make a crystal skull, is to reflect the same abilities as the bone skull has.
Hey,
and
that,
as a
that
matter
makes
of fact,
perfect sense to me.
Marcel Vogel said that quartz crystal, what did he say? Quartz crystal has a affinity of its vibrational frequency the same as the bones in the physical body. So if a person is holding a piece of quartz crystal, which is alive and active, it is interfacing with their entire body because we have bones in every place in our body.
Very, very interesting. Well, Joshua, we got about 5 minutes left of the show. I'd like you to tell everyone your events that you have coming up, where they can get a hold of you, where they can buy a skull, and what to look for in a skull.
Okay. Well, the best place to find us is on our website, crystalskullexplorers.com. And although we have a new one that's coming out, we're not publicly really releasing that one yet. We're just doing the current one. Email address is the same, very simple, crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. We have contact with carvers in China and Brazil, and all the time we're helping people to get their own skulls. So all a person has to do is just kind of contact us, and we'll ask them a couple of questions like, what kind of gemstones are they interested in, what kind of price range are they looking for, and we'll try to help them find something. It's unbelievable, but since I met Katrina in 2009, I wouldn't be surprised if there's over 1,000 people that we have helped to find their own crystal skull. I mean, it's just like, every year there's several hundred skulls that we get and we share with people. As far as things that are coming up, if you're in the Seattle area, Tacoma area, we're going to be at the Emerald Spiral, which is a kind of normal kind of spiritual fair that Boeing started, and now some other individuals have taken over. It'll be right by where we live in Kent. Also, Crystal Skull World Day, which we mentioned briefly, November 22nd. There's going to be a meditation done at 4 different periods of time. There's a website, crystalskullworldday.com. People can go to participate. We did it last year. We're going to do it again. We've helped to set up 2 events here in Seattle for people to come together. There'll be some other locations where people will be coming together, but you don't have to. Just be in your own home and do the meditation. You don't have to do the meditation with the skull. Of course, we could help you to have one before that day. You can work with a piece of quartz crystal. We also do on the 13th day of every month at the 13th hour, your local time, another type of meditation, which we've been doing since January 1st, 2009. Again, if you go to crystalskullexplorers.com, you'll see the information about that meditation. Again, you don't need to have a crystal skull to join us. Our free ebooks on that website, our free newsletter is there. Be in Belgium from October 9th to the 13th. We'll be extremely busy with a lecture or workshop and private sessions with the crystal skulls, which is also something I'll be doing this weekend, like a 10-minute session where a person will hold a skull. I'll do an intuitive reading for them. And then we have the 2 novels that we're working on. First time I've worked on a novel, but I'm getting help from 2 other friends. These are 2 amazing stories, and what I figured out to do is to offer a special membership, which we're still working on to get it organized through our new website, where people will be able to read these books before they actually come out. Every month they'll get chapters from either or both books, as well as the special interviews I've been doing over the last few years about the paranormal. So this is basically what we have going on. It's kind of like nonstop.
You kind of got a full plate there, Joshua.
Yeah, well, I'm an Aries, so if I'm not busy, I'm bored. So I like it. So it's better this way.
That is true. You know what they say, idle hands is the devil's playground.
Right. Plus, my hand is, into everything. I'm reading a lot of books on the paranormal, and now I'm starting to speak more about that. In my workshop in Belgium, I'll have like an hour presentation on the latest findings. So it's all good.
Very interesting. I want to thank you, of course, for coming on the show. It was really, really interesting because, quite honestly, I didn't know a ton about crystal skulls until you came on the show. And I feel I have a much better understanding of where they came from, what they're here for. They're not just really, really pretty paperweights.
Oh,
they
no.
actually serve a purpose for mankind. That being said, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the show. Eric, again, thank you for being my co-host. And
My pleasure. It was really very interesting.
It was very
I thought
interesting,
it was
wasn't
fascinating.
it?
A lot of it kind of hit home with me.
Very, very interesting. So everyone, why don't you check everything out over at the website. Of course, go to Journeys of the Crystal Skull Explorer. You're going to want to check that all out. Plus, they're on Facebook. You can check it all out. Definitely think about getting your own crystal skull. Christmas is right around the corner. Take care of each other, love each other. And remember, keep looking at those weird skies up there, because I swear to God I saw a UFO. I'll talk about that next week. But until then, take care. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.